Get these things working.
Rabbi Eshel.
Hello. Let me
Hello.
getting these things working over here. Let's see.
Hello.
Come on in, everybody.
Hi.
Ben, you've got a nice haircut going on since the last time I saw you.
Oh man, am I good looking or what?
Very good looking.
Are you really gonna make me say something not nice? It's like you're adding to my sins for Yom Kippur, which
Rabbi, how about I just had my matzah? You can't see it, but I had my matzah lunch, so the hummus is out of the house. I'm being observant. So
that's a really interesting statement. That is a really interesting statement. I am being observant. The chametz is out of my house. I think it's so fascinating that this holiday, while it is really, it's the holiday that we look to as us really becoming a people, yet it also as one people, but it also divides so much in our community, even just by the foods that we eat and what is acceptable and what is not acceptable, like the difference between certain Ashkenazi and certain Mizrahi and certain Sfaradi traditions, right? Like the eating of rice or not eating rice, the eating of corn, not eating corn, right? And then it's funny, it's like I feel people, and myself included, pick and choose. Like, it's like, well, if you're Ashkenazi, you're not allowed to eat rice. But if you're Sfaradi or Mizrahi, you're allowed to eat rice. Well, what happens if I come from a family that is both Mizrahi and Ashkenazi? What am I supposed to do? Roy, what you got for us?
What's the difference between Mizrahi and Sephardi?
Oh, look at you. Roy. All right.
Remember, I'm a newbie.
Eastern Europe and Western Europe.
Well,
Yes.
because you got Mizrahi and you got Mizrahi and Sfaradi is different, right? Usually they get lumped together, but it really is different.
Yeah. Also,
Mizrahi,
Persian Jews is Sephardic.
So
Turkey, which is in Europe, half of it, and half of it in Asia, also Sephardic.
But you also have the Mizrahim, right?
That's what I'm trying to say. Like the ones
Sfaradi and Mizrahi are different.
Yemenite, and all these parts.
But that's different.
Sephardic,
but it's
considered
different.
Sephardic.
See, look,
No?
Roy, you see that already? We're already getting into this. We're one people, two people, three opinions.
Okay, here's another question. As I learn.
Joining us. I'm going to answer your question in a second, Roy. Lorraine, I'm very excited. I'm so excited to see you pop in. Are you in the West Coast or the East Coast?
I'm in DC.
You're on the East Coast. Okay, fabulous. So it's good to see you. All right, so yeah. Usually the catch-all, right? Sfaradi, Ashkenazi. You have like the Eastern Europe and Western Europe people, and then Sfaradi, originally Sfarad, right? That's Spain. So it's like the migration of those after 1492 and the expulsion and all those kind of things. The migration from Spain that goes into North Africa, across there, North Africa, and then also through Europe on its way up into Turkey, and then down through Syria, and Lebanon, like that whole area. But then you also have the Jews that were already way out there in Baghdad, in Baghdad or in Iraq, Iran, Yemen,
Right.
all the way out there. So they're all kind of rooted. So of course the traditions of the foods are also going to be based on where you come from,
Right.
right? But then, and I think really with the establishment of the state of Israel, where you have a lot of the mixing mostly, and then also coming into America and whatnot, but the mixing of cultures, and then whose culture's foods kind of take over. Like, for example, one of my cousins, Ashkenazi, I mean, like European, Eastern Europe, and Hungary, that family. But one of my cousins married a woman from Tunisia, and so that when we go to their house for Seder, you got the whole bunch of cuckoo stuff going on over there. They're hitting you with things, and they're putting the Seder plate on your head as they walk around and give blessings. But then it's also, we eat a lot of rice at those celebrations as well. So during Passover, by the transitive property, I claim my cousin's Tunisian family. So I eat the rice, but it's true though. It's like when you say like Am Echad, one people, but within one people there are so many different traditions, and this one is where it really comes out. I feel like on Passover, this is like what you're gonna eat, what you're not gonna eat. Penina, what you got for us?
You know that the matzot were not invented during when they crossed necessarily the desert. When Abraham welcomed, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. When Abraham welcomed the angels, he told Sarah and he said, Mahari afi ugot matzot. Hurry up and bake matzah cakes. So they knew about the matzot all the way back in Abraham's time.
Yeah, I wish that we would pay more attention to the cake part. Wouldn't that be nice?
That's what he
Wouldn't that be
said.
nice?
Mahari afi, hurry up and bake.
Well, well, that leads me to another thought. And I had this discussion last night. And it always, there's a debate. We're debate about rice and not rice, but here's my question to throw out here to you. Is it just about the mitzvah of the food or the intention behind the food? Here's what I mean. Is it, I'm going to say that again. Is it just the should the focus be about the mitzvah of the food, the technicality of the food? This is the question for discussion. We're totally going over in this way, but I love it. Should it be the technicality of the food should be the thing that we focus on, or the intention behind the food that we focus on? Here's why I say that. Get ready. Because my wife makes a chocolate chip cookie that is kosher for Passover, like 100% kosher for Passover, but it's so good. You don't even know that you're eating a kosher for Passover cookie. I could give you this cookie on any given Sunday, on any given day of the week that wasn't Passover, and you'd be like, man, this is a great chocolate chip cookie. I love the chocolate chip cookie. Guess what? It's kosher for Passover. Whoa, that's great. So let me ask you, is that really fulfilling of the way we eat over Passover? Technically, it is. Technically, it is. Everything in there kosher for Passover. Like if I gave the recipe to somebody living in, Bnei Brak or Mea Sha'arim or in Brooklyn and wherever, I could give them the recipe. They could make it, and it would be kosher for Passover, but it would not taste like a kosher for Passover cookie. What do we think? Is it the intention that's more important, or is it the specifics, like the actual details of it, that's more important? What do we think? Ben?
I like to go with the intention, Rabbi.
Okay, so tell me more about that. So you wouldn't eat that cookie then?
Well, I might eat the cookie, but I like the intention because
I mean, I might eat the cookie because cookie's good, but
my experience as a Jew throughout my life, and that includes, conservative, Dad Ariel, Camp Ramah, Wilshire Boulevard, et cetera, married. One of my marriages was to a Persian woman, so Sephardic and Ashkenazi coming together and eating rice on Passover. But my experience as a Jew has always been what works for me. And I have no question of my Jewish identity and the importance in my life of my Jewish identity. And I've made, and I don't say I've made peace, but I've found comfort in having my Jewish journey work for me. And those are my intentions.
okay, great. So I'm going to push you a little bit more to get a little bit more like specific. If I'm eating a cookie and I don't know that it's really, that I didn't know it's kosher for Pesach, and I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. Am I really fulfilling the idea of, like, the whole purpose is for us to remember as if we were there too. The statement says, when God let me free, right? When God brought me out of the land of Egypt. You weren't in the land of Egypt. Maybe you visited there, but you weren't there. And everything around the experience of the Seder and this week is supposed to help strengthen or emphasize that concept. So is eating a chocolate chip cookie that tastes like a cookie I could eat any other day, how does that strengthen our intention? Does it make it more vivid? Does it make it more, hits all our senses? Or does it kind of take away that we're just trying to get through it because we're just trying to get through the details? Right, I can't eat this, so I'm gonna eat this cookie because it's really good. That's where I'm trying to get to it. Like, I agree with what you were saying, Ben, and I think that is a personal journey for all of us. A personal journey as the way we connect to the collective, which is beautiful. And you were very articulate. I want us to talk a little bit more about this concept of the intention versus the keva, which is the nuts and bolts of it all. Go ahead. Well, first I want to give Ben a chance to
I'll be very quick. Thank you, Rabbi.
Answer, and then we'll go to Merle.
I'll be very quick. We had a beautiful Seder here, 25 people, and we went through a beautiful service. And I think we touched each person individually about what you just were saying, or how I understood it, the connection with we as a people, and the slavery and the freedom, the story of Passover. And we served wine that was not kosher for Passover.
Yeah.
I do not believe it diminished one iota from the overall experience and the overall.
Oh, because regardless, you were still focused. You were thinking about it. I like that. Okay, I like that. We're getting somewhere. All right, I'm going to go Merle, Lorraine, Roy. Lorraine, Roy.
As a child, I always was taught by my parents, and I guess my grandparents, about what you give up for Passover. That you're not eating bread, etc. So there, to me, I was always taught the intention. But I think I was in college and I went to Chicago to visit my aunt and uncle and my cousins with my parents for Passover. And across the street from where my aunt and uncle lived, there was a store, one of those pop-up Passover stores. And I walked in the store with them and I was blown away by everything that had been made kosher for Passover. So you didn't have to give anything up. And I still, like, when I wander through the stores now, and you have to go to a lot of stores here to get what you need for Passover if you can't make it all.
Yeah.
I I wander around and I look at what has been made kosher for Passover, and I wonder, where has the intent gone? Like, you can't give up something for a week. And,
That-
you know, and
Fascinating.
so, but to me, the intent and the mitzvah are a combination, because I think you have to have the intent to do the mitzvah.
So yeah, it's fascinating. Like, I remember when I was in Jerusalem in 1994. 1994, the first kosher McDonald's opened.
That was when
93
Sharon was there at that
93,
AQC
94,
program.
first kosher McDonald's. But then it was followed by Burger King in 98, kosher for Passover, Burger King, 98, 99. And I remember, or kosher Burger King, there was both Burger King and McDonald's were making kosher for Passover buns for burgers. Kosher for Passover buns, like this whipped up serious potato flour whipped up thing. And there were lines out the door. And I was like, how does this help us focus on that period in our life? By there's still so much comfort in saying, I can still go to McDonald's, I can still go to Burger King. I was blown away by that, blown away. Like, I still don't. All right, wow, I got a bunch of hands popping up. Okay, we got Lorraine, we got Roy, then we got Linda, we got Brad, Rebecca. All right, I'll try and remember that. Oh, and Eric. Oh, Eric, I know you've been waiting for a very long time. Okay, Lorraine, here's what I'm gonna do. I'm sorry. I'm gonna go Eric, and then we'll go. Oh man, I forgot my order already. I'm gonna go Eric, Lorraine, Roy, Linda, Brad, Rebecca. Everybody remember your order. You're up.
The whole thing is you have 601, or is it 603 commandments?
613.
613. Sorry, I can't keep this straight.
So many.
But the thing is that each one of those, if you go through them, you find so many tiny and issues and prohibitions, and the only way to do that is to you can just blindly follow all these instructions, and it gets you. I don't think it really either adds to Elohim's satisfaction or yours, or you could try to find out what the underlying idea, what the faith is, what you have faith in, and do that, and figure that yes, if there was maybe a little bit of leaven in something that I happen to nibble, I don't think it's going to destroy the universe.
But there are those who do.
Right? I know, and that's
completely disagree and say, God, it doesn't matter what you feel.
I know that seems to me so alien to. I mean, it's strange.
Yeah,
I can't really get behind that.
Well, I got you. Yes, I'm with you. Thank you, Eric. Appreciate that. Appreciate you. Lorraine, you're up.
Such a good opportunity for learning, because I'm seeing the diversity of opinions, and in my 2 cents on that is that sometimes we can have conflicting good values, right? So there are conflicting good intentions. So how I see Passover is it's going to be you're going to advance the memory for generations, right? You're going to uphold the memory for generations. Okay, so how do I mean that? Well, when I have in my Passover, I had 7 kids, right? And we're all trying to wrangle the kids, and you can all imagine how that is. And so not everything was kosher in our Seder, but the main objective is to print the memory, to imprint the tradition, the story. And that was my main focus, to make it memorable, to lay the foundation. And as years progress, then we can make it a little bit more narrow, more strict, more kosher, if we call it, right, like that, more strict. But my main objective was that, and yeah, you can have definitely a good value of maintaining everything kosher. And the other good value is, well, you got to build this as a foundation for the future. So that's how I see it.
That's beautiful, because really, the main concept or the main commandment that we have is to remember and to teach to our children. Like I say, you teach this to your children. So we were talking about foundational. Boom, Lorraine. I love that. Fantastic. All right, who was next? Sorry, Pnina, you're out. You're good. You were at the end of the line here, but I love it. Hold on, Pnina, I got you. Roy, you're up.
I would probably be on the same page as Ben and Eric. I might bring in a little bit of Brad's Greek learning. I'm on the side of intentionality rather than rigid adherence to form. It's like Plato versus Aristotle, is that the Platonic ideal, the form, is the idea in its most pure realization, but we can't always do that. So if your intent and your goal is to reach that, but because we live in the real world and may not be able to realize that purest, we're still striving to elevate our lives. So,
but to what end though? Because the thing is, Roy, I totally agree with you. I totally agree with everything that's being said. But to what end, right? What is it going to look like in 1,000 years? If
well,
we
the point
don't
is to continually improve. Not flog yourself.
That's such loaded.
You don't want
word.
You don't want to rationalize it and stay at a lower level. You always want to try and be as pure as you can. And so if you didn't achieve it this year, then maybe next year you can be prepared and do it better. But as long as you're striving to improve, I mean, our religion is aspirational. And so you got to continue to strive for the highest and continue to work to that.
Okay. Yeah, all right, I got a couple thoughts, but I want to make sure everybody gets in there. Who did we say was next? We said it was, was Linda next?
Yes.
Linda, we'll go Linda, Rebecca, Brad.
Okay, I think let's talk about the kosher for Passover.
Let's.
All right. Gefilte fish was not part of the slave's diet. Yet you consider it
Are you sure?
Gefilte fish? No, I am not sure. Okay. However, were macaroons? You think it was? Okay. There was no Passover for the slaves, We're celebrating what happened to them then. And they took the unleavened bread, yes. So we have matzah at the Passover Seder, which does force us to go back and see the unleavened bread, no matter what our level of observance is.
Okay.
But to go to a pop-up store that has for Passover things, I would support. Because if we are creative enough to take the Passover components and keep it within a kosher for Passover mind frame, we are still observing what we were told to observe. Kosher for Passover. And there's nothing wrong with being creative and using what our natural inclinations are, as long as we stay within that commemoration of why we are focused at what we're doing.
But does it make it easy? Is it too comforting?
Okay, where does it say you have to suffer to observe Passover?
We're Jews. That's what we do.
No, that's what we try not to do.
We try to celebrate that we are not suffering. We are comparing ourselves to those that have suffered, and we're honoring them because we were allowed to live so that we don't have to suffer to that degree.
So why do I even have to eat that stuff? Why can't I just,
Because we have to remember, like there are advertisements on TV that Jews don't stand alone. We stand with you against Jewish hate. That is why we have to remember so that we can stay stable and always move forward and be.
So can't I remember without eating this nasty stuff?
No.
Oh,
Because history can repeat itself. So we have to remember history.
it still feels like we're not free yet in the story. I'm not sure if I should be eating that cookie. I do, and I eat the cookie because it's delicious.
But it's kosher for Passover.
Yeah, but I wouldn't know it unless somebody told me.
But you do know it, and that's why it's in your house. You do know it because it's
Okay.
on the package.
It's not packaged. My wife makes it from scratch.
Okay, so you talk to your wife and she'll tell you it's kosher for Passover.
I know,
And
it's
you know it.
amazing.
The alternative would be a pork chop and a bun.
Okay, now that's what I worry about with the kids that are now 35 to 45 years old.
Thank
That
you,
it is going
Linda.
to be a pork chop and a bun the next day. All right, and that's why we go through the Seders now. Because the future generation's not worried about kosher for Passover. So I thank God when they do have a package of something that's kosher for Passover.
I love it, Linda. I love it. I love it. Passion. That was fabulous. Rebecca, thank you, Linda.
So I'm primarily vegan, but I will eat eggs and cheese and fish on occasion. So I decided this year I'm really going to try to figure out what I can eat. And so in my internet searching, I found something that said, as long as you're maintaining the mitzvah on the first day and on the last day, you're okay. So yesterday I made a matzah sandwich, and boy, I was suffering. It was dry, it was crumbly. I was picking up crumbs all day long.
There was a group. So I did the community Seder yesterday at the temple, and there was one whole table, and they were swearing by matzah. We love matzah. We eat matzah all year long. So why would you do that to yourself? I remember in college, you go to the cafeteria for any meal during Passover. I would take the matzah, I would take the pepperoni pizza, and I would scrape it all onto the matzah. Right. I remember being in Israel in Yafo in a seafood restaurant in Yafo from the Arabs, and they were people were there, and you got matzah on the table, and they're ordering their shrimp and their calamari, but they got their matzah. Right, to Linda's point, I like that. Okay, Rebecca, thank you.
Wait. Here's a whole
go.
A whole cookbook of vegan cooking for Passover. It's by Molly Katzen, Katzen, and it's amazing. From one vegetarian to
Molly Katzen.
Molly Katzen.
Kosher for Passover. I love it. All right, Brad, you're up.
Okay. Well, first of all, Rabbi, I want to thank you for sending us the letters that we wrote to ourselves from the high holidays. And your timing was perfect because it arrived just as Passover was coming upon us and gave me another opportunity to think about the track that I'm on this year. And I thought that was really an inspiration that you did. But on the Passover topic, on the food issue, I have to say I'm an apostate because I don't keep kosher. So the concept for me of keeping kosher for Passover is almost hypocritical because I don't keep kosher to begin with. So to me, the emphasis on food is totally displaced. The focus should be on the message of this holiday, which is one of freedom. And I want to say that we use the American World Jewish Haggadah this year, which emphasizes this message about freedom and how so many people around the world, including here in this country, are not free, that this mission is not done yet, where there's still work to be done. And that's where the emphasis of this holiday should be, and not on food.
I mean, I agree. It's yes, and I think it's yes, and it's like the pepperoni pizza on the pizza matzah, or it's like the shrimps on the table with the matzah. So it's not kosher. Like, yes, it doesn't have to be all or nothing. And I also agree about the message that it all comes back to this idea of balance, of keva and kavanah, the intention versus the nuts and bolts of things, and why we do what we do.
Okay.
Because, right, we don't want it just to become about the idea of freedom, because that's then universal, almost solely universal, right? But we have a particular way of teaching and learning and relating to it. And part of that way is by using the foods and whatnot, right? Because it's about engaging with all of our senses, but it can't just be about that, right? You're so right, Brad. The message cannot be lost or remotely overshadowed by trying to be so meticulous about a piece of bread that we find in our house.
And just let me say that,
bring it.
I mean, to a certain extent, I buy into some of the food ritual, in the sense that, no, I do not eat bread during Passover. I eat matzah, and I eat matzah every day. But that's where it ends.
Okay,
and
that's fabulous.
That's
it.
That's the food concession that I make. But to me, that's not what this holiday is about. And to me, that's just, I'm going through some kind of ritual behavior, but it really doesn't have a lot of meaning to me. That's not, for me, that's not where the meaning of this holiday is.
Yet you still do it, which is the interesting part. So I have to say that maybe there is some meaning in it, because if anything, it's the meaning that just kind of helps you think about it a little bit better, a little bit more deeply. And it's no coincidence that I chose 6 months from when I sent those, from Yom Kippur, right? To really have it built in. We have this time of Pesach that is really right in between the halfway of the year, from Yom Kippur until the next Yom Kippur. Brad, fabulous. So, okay, Pnina, you've been waiting patiently. I'm so proud of you. I'm very impressed, and I'm very proud of you. You're muted. Oh.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. I think the whole idea is they really didn't have to make it. They found it ready. They ate it the way they are. Nobody ever said that they stood there and cooked it. The manna grew. It was there for them. It was ready-made. I think the Passover, it's not just about the matzah. It's about the process that they had it hard. So we are trying to give up something to show that it was hardship. It was hard for them. So what I did, I was teaching at the Cleveland Hebrew School for 47 years, different ages. We brought a rabbi, a bunch of them, and they brought with them the machines, the baking thing process, and the flour and everything. And the kids were standing there actually making them. And they took turns going into this bake room and they baked them. The idea is to put you to a little bit extra work, maybe.
Yeah.
So you should be feeling that they were under duress, that the whole thing of freedom didn't come easy. It was a hard process. So I think it's not what you really eat, it's what you're giving up. That's it. So if you are not giving up on everything, it's okay. As long as you have something that reminds you that they were in hardship and that they gave up whatever it is that they had in Egypt in order to try this new life that's going to come their way. And like I said, they knew about the matzah. Abraham told his wife, hurry up and do it. Let's go bake the matzah cakes. So it's the idea that it was hard just to hurry up was hard. That the whole idea that they were under pressure to deal with this and to have, look, today you have candles that are not candles. You are having light bulbs lit up in temple the whole time. Over the Torah, there is a light that constantly burning on Shabbat too, and it's electric. So how are you going to explain this? Does this mean that you're not doing the right thing? You are living in a different generation, in a different things that are available to you. So whatever it is that you're doing, as long as like the intention that you're trying to remember, that the whole idea was that they were under stress, they were rushing, and the manna was presented ready. They didn't even have to cook
I got that. Time out. So here's my question. Is that enough to sustain us? Look, it
depends what you're looking for.
Is that enough to sustain us as a people? That's where I'm a little,
okay, so I'm going to tell you.
Hold on. I want to answer a couple other questions first.
I'm not done though.
I know you're not done.
It's important. Okay, my teacher used to tell me that the kids are going to tell me, oh, my mom didn't do this and my father didn't do this. Does this make me not a good Jew? And my teacher told me, you tell those kids that if they do one gesture and call themselves Jewish, one gesture makes them a good Jew. And that's what I did. So I think that should be answering some of the questions here.
It doesn't answer it though. I agree with you, but it doesn't answer it.
Some of my kids are very happy to hear it.
I agree with you, and I'm glad that those kids were happy to hear it, but is it enough to sustain us over the next 1,000 years?
It's you. Don't say us, say me.
No, I'm going to say us.
Okay.
Is that enough to sustain us over the next 1,000 years? So I think Stacy and Roy were asking what Brad was referring to. So at Yom Kippur, in place of a sermon, I did an exercise for everyone that they were going to write a letter to themselves about what they wanted this next year to look like. What type of work did they need to do on themselves? What type of work did they want to do with others, right? Hopes and dreams, but also relationships to fix. And I gave them the opportunity to write themselves a letter. And then I said to them, I'm going to send it to you, not in a year, but in 6 months to see, how have you done what you said that you've wanted to do? Have you started working on what it is that you said you wanted to work on, right? As a reminder. So Brad came to that exercise and those letters just went out because it was about 6 months in between. So just kind of a cool thing.
And
yes,
Brad, I just want to say how meaningful that was for me. I think it was inspired, and it's been something that I've been thinking about these past 6 months. And I really, it helped give me some direction this year. So I really applaud what you did. I think it really, for me, it made a difference in my life.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that, Brad. I appreciate that. And I appreciate you. Beautiful. That's awesome. So another thing came up that I found very interesting. What do we call the meal that we do together, or the thing we call it? The way we say with Seder, everybody's talking about Seder. Do we Seder in Hebrew means what?
Order.
And do you think it is a coincidence that we call this thing Seder, order, when we're dealing with a story and a time of our people that was very chaotic and in quite disorder, if you will? What would the purpose be of telling this story and having this experience in the way that we do? Why have such an order to things as we celebrate something that really was so chaotic, leading into even more disorder, if you will, once they've crossed the sea? Merle, what you got for us?
I think it teaches us.
Oh, and then
that-
Stacy, I got you after that. Go ahead, Merle, then
that
Stacy.
teaches us that certain things have to follow a system, to be systematic, and to not jump ahead of ourselves in anything that we do, for that matter. That we have to follow I don't know, I can't think of another word, but to follow a system, or which is order.
Fascinating. So it's almost, so what just popped into my head was this concept that certain order and boundaries sets us free. Certain order and boundaries sets us free. And I'll share what I mean by that in a little bit. Stacy, go.
Well, my response to that is, it's, for me, the longer I live, the more I realize how there are a lot of things I have no control over. And I think that we need to find some bearings in life, and I don't, everybody has to find their own bearings, and, what kind of helps them in terms of sustaining themselves and viewing the world, and, some of these issues. And I'm trying to recall the specific thing I remember reading about or hearing about, that if you don't have boundaries, you're not free. I mean, part of freedom is understanding what your boundaries are and being able to, function within them. And anyway, that was just the thought that I had with respect to that.
Yeah, it reminds me very much of music, right? To the creative process, yet you're still bound by certain laws and rules. I mean, here we're talking about the nuance about rules, regulations, and commandments and laws and things you have to follow for Passover, and what is kosher for Passover, what's not kosher for Passover, and what are we celebrating? We're celebrating freedom. And all of those words of like laws and rules and structure and have to, breaking rules, and it kind of sound antithetical to the concept of freedom. Do they not? But I don't necessarily think that, like, true freedom is probably chaotic. True freedom really is chaos and anarchy, if you will. So, right, and we talked about this months ago, when we say it's not, let my people go, period. It's let my people go so they may serve me, right? Do you remember this? We talked about the difference between Eved Pharaoh and Eved Adonai, because it says, you're right, to be or in the translation of a slave of Pharaoh versus a worshiper of God. Do you remember this conversation that we had before? Slave, worshiper versus slave, and it being the same word in Hebrew. But the freedom in being a worshiper of God under these boundaries of Torah, right? Because Torah is the boundary. When we have those commandments, the rules that you have to do this and can't do that, this is how you live your life. What did we say? Being a slave of Pharaoh, we were not human. If you remember this, what did we say about this? That when you're a slave of Pharaoh, you're not a human. You're really just an it. You're an extension of a hammer or a shovel, right? You're a tool, right? You're an extension of a hammer or a tool. Oh, my hammer broke, I throw it away and get a new one. Oh, my shovel broke, I throw it away and get a new one. Oh, my Hebrew slave broke, I throw him away and get a new one. versus being a worshiper of God, right? There are rules and boundaries of that, but it's there to make our lives better.
Not
right?
boundaries.
Not boundaries? You don't think of them as boundaries? Nina, go
I
ahead.
I think it's responsibilities. I don't think they weren't given boundaries to think. They were supposed to think
But they were given
find out
boundaries.
what
They
is
were
it.
giving boundaries on the way to act.
Well, these are more instructions and more guidelines. And then they chose where the boundaries came.
They're
And they are
commands.
the ones
It's
who chose,
the
yes,
word
to
is
do that or not.
commandment. The word is
But
not,
they were
suggestions.
offered, and it was a process to understand it and to accept it.
Well, they were offered. The choice was you do this or you die. That was the offer.
Because as slaves, that's what they understood. But later on, it became more freedom of choice, isn't it?
The freedom
to
of
choose
choice,
between good and bad, isn't that a freedom of choice?
right, with consequences. So it is within a framework.
Okay.
So
The
it's not really true
consequences
freedom.
came because of the way they behave, not because God literally, in the beginning, they were told, okay, God is going to do this and this and this. But eventually, the responsibilities and the results were as a result of their own actions. You have to come to that conclusion. Otherwise, what was the choice to choose between good and bad all about?
Oh, so that's a justification, is what you're saying. Fascinating. Interesting. Good. Okay. Then we're gonna keep going then. I got more. We didn't even start the other stuff I was talking about. So, oh, Brad, you got a question?
Well, I was just thinking about your comment about order. And the Seder is a memory act. And memory can be so unfocused.
Yes.
That the fact that you would want to put a frame around your memory and to give it some structure seems to me to be a very worthwhile thing, because otherwise you're going in 1,000 different directions.
Oh man, that's so good. I gotta find this thing. There's this great quote. Oh, I gotta find it. I gotta find it. Bear with me. Who said it? It was a Mark Twain quote about memory.
By the way,
Okay, I
Mark
think I
Twain
found it.
never left the places that he talked about. He never visited those places that he wrote about. Did you know that? He was a newspaperman in New York, and then before that, he was living in Silver City. He never visited none of the places that he wrote about. Huckleberry Finn wasn't
no
there.
idea. All right, so check out here. I found it. Here's what Mark Twain said, and this goes over with you. I have such a good memory that I recall things that never happened. He said, I have such a good memory that and because the Seder, you're absolutely right? It's this, we speak of this collective memory, and it's so vivid that we're supposed to exclaim, right, that we ourselves departed from Egypt. So in order to kind of focus all of that, it's like, all right, we got all this memory, we got all these stories, we got all these ideas, we got all these concepts. We need to now put them in an order to focus ourselves, right? So we need that framework in order to focus ourselves. It's fascinating. You know what else I thought was really interesting, just in passing, Lorraine, when Lorraine was saying, with the kids that she, and you had no idea that you were even making this point. I think then you said, I want to make it more narrow for the kids, more focused, more narrow, and which is really interesting because Mitzrayim, right? Egypt in Hebrew is called Mitzrayim, and Mitzrayim means the narrow places, right? It means the narrow places. So really, we're trying to get away from the narrow places. So Lorraine, let's open it up. We're not making anything narrow. It's just like we're going to town. It's going to be as cuckoo and hectic. So for example, and it's going back to Brad's point earlier about the food and the telling of our story. I think that the foods, when we talk about, and even when we talk about like the 4 children, it's like that we're all different types of learners and always trying to evolve in the way that we experience this collective memory and telling our story. And here's something that we did last night that I was really, I tried something, I experimented, if you will, with how to lead the community Seder. So Cantor Shapiro and I, we led the community Seder, and we actually, we started it all together. We had about 150 people from 2 years old to 92 years old and everything in between. So it's like, what are we gonna do? How are we gonna hit this whole crew? We started off with maybe the first 15 minutes all together. And then what we did is we broke up the people into 3 different groups where they were going to experience 3 different ways of telling the story or experiencing the story, right? That we had the ones with the little kids, with families with little children. We sent them, and I got some teens from our youth group to help with this. We sent them on an exploration throughout the entire temple on a photo scavenger hunt, creating tableaus, right? Human representations of different themes. And I had them go in this order of the story, right? So they could kind of experience it that way. I had the teenagers and the 20-somethings and some other people who wanted come with me to do a drum circle with the telling of the story, and all the different rhythms were based on the different feelings, the ebbs and flows of the story, which was just really fascinating in the telling the story. And then Cantor Shapiro did a text study based on the flow of the story to kind of hit different senses, different concepts, different ways of learning. And that takes me back to the idea, right, of what is going to be sustainable. If the concept is remembering where we come from, remembering this idea of freedom, remembering of this idea of covenant and relationship with God, remembering this, and I think Brad also said it really beautifully, this idea of none of us are free until all of us are free, to understand that there are people who are not free in this world, and what is our responsibility there to realize that we're going to always be striving to find, and I think Roy said this too. What did you say about the idea of religion and evolving, right? And this is funny. I just that we shouldn't feel limited by order, but rather be open to different creative processes in exploring that order. Perhaps open to different creative processes in exploring that order, knowing that we are all such different learners. Fascinating. I like that. All right, next thing. Any comments before we move on to the next point? Let me go back to where we were. Oh, here's something I want to ask. I'm very curious. Because it's chidul mitzvah, right? It's the beautification of the mitzvah. It's why we have, right? Yes, you have to do this, but then it's all the beautification of that. Like, for example, why we have such beautiful, colorful talitot, prayer shawls, right? If the mitzvah is really just about the fringes on the ends of your clothes, why have all these different beautiful artistic representations of what a prayer shawl could be? Did anybody have any fun or creative or things that they meaningful experiences that they do at their Seder that they're proud of, or that they really enjoy doing, or that they have done that they find very? Lorraine, what you got for us?
I was pretty excited about setting up this Seder, because you know already that we had some kids coming. So I asked the kids to bring with them their Lego figures. So when they came to the house and they brought their Lego figures, we put them on the Seder to represent all the Israelites crossing the sea. And then I had some seashells. I had a blue table cover, and then a narrow part that was color of the sand. So it was pretty neat. And then some palms and stuff. So it was pretty cool. I liked it.
I
It was
love
very
it.
practical for the
Beautification
kids.
of the mitzvah. I love it. I love it.
Yeah,
I love
it was pretty nice.
I love it. Oh, there's no Torah study without Doug drinking his beer. I love that. Right, Doug? Yeah, he's got
beer. How about root beer?
Yeah, he's got his right. All right, Brad, what do you got for us?
Well, one of the things that we always do is we always find a discussion topic. And this year, our topic was from Prager's Haggadah, collective guilt. The guilt of discussing the death of the Egyptian firstborn, and the whole concept of collective guilt and collective guilt in our world today. So we always find something in the story to use as a springboard for a discussion.
I love that.
And we get a very good discussion going.
What I also popped into my mind, that's also very Yom Kippuri, right? Yet again, there's collective guilt. Ashamnu, Bagadnu, right? Like we did these things. We sinned. We were jealous. We were collective. So where did it go this year? How did it go? Give us a little taste, Brad.
Well, I mean, we talked, part of the discussion is about contemporary Russia and the responsibility that Russian people have for the atrocities that are being committed in the Ukraine, for example. What is their collective guilt?
Man, massive.
So that was
that's a heavy Seder, man.
But
we were singing about frogs in people's underpants. That was what we were singing about. Wow. Thank you, Brad.
You know, the children who attended our Seder are all teenagers, so they were able to participate in a discussion like this.
That's fantastic. That's beautiful. Thank you. All right, last word, Ben. You get the last word today.
Wow, I think I got the first and the last.
Look at you.
That'll never happen again, hopefully. Nothing as intellectual as Brad's revelatory Seder, but this year we made a Manischewitz spritzer to start, and I could share the recipe with all for next year. And
Please don't.
It was actually quite good. So we had some enjoyment with our Manischewitz spritzers.
Amazing. Okay. Well, everybody, well done. We got nothing that I prepared. Good. I'd still.
Oh,
good.
well, this was great. Thank you.
There'll be another one next year.
This was perfect.
Right.
Thank
All
you.
right,
Shabbat shalom, everyone.
Shabbat shalom.
Thank you, Rabbi. Thank you all.
Bye, everybody. Chag Sameach. Shabbat shalom.
Bye.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.